Well, let's bring in political commentator and founder of PR Counsel, Kristy McSweeney. Kristy, great to have you here on the program. Thanks for coming on Campaign Confidential. Now, the Trump Doge-style crackdown has made its way to Australia, with the coalition, as I just mentioned, uncovering some bizarre government grants as it prepares to form its efficiency plan. But I'll tell you what, Doge has kind of gotten caught up in some of the crossfire around Trump, but surely there's a great opportunity here for the coalition to backfoot Labor on just what taxpayer money is getting spent on.
Look, I think you're right, James, in terms of the coalition needs to be careful not to be seen as too Trump-like. That does appeal to a conservative base element, but not the majority of Australians. On the eve of this election campaign cycle, and Labor is trying to bait Peter Dutton, and I hear the Greens are trying to bait Peter Dutton, calling him Trumpian. So far, he hasn't put a foot wrong in playing into that trap. However, that does not avoid the discussion that some of the things Trump is doing, like auditing what government spends its money on in the American Doge, is not going to be a benefit to Australians when we do it here. And Australians have a right to know what their taxpayer funding is being spent on. And the other thing, a lot of ministers don't even know what this money goes to. They empower public servants to recommend where the money flows to, and in many cases to sign off on it. So I think this will be an uncovering of many surprises to the Labor government as well, who've probably taken their eye off the ball on a lot of this. But then again, some of it is actively moved to the top of the pile. And people need to know what's being actively moved to the top of the pile, because a lot of it just doesn't resonate with how you want your tax to be spent, does it?
Well, I think you're absolutely right there. There's a huge opportunity for the coalition to expose just the way these bureaucracies, unelected bureaucrats, are disposing of our money in all sorts of crazy ways. But let's move over to Anthony Albanese, who today offered Australia's support to Ukraine, suggesting he might send troops over to Europe as part of a peacekeeping force. He said the contribution would be small. Here he was earlier.
If a large country like Russia is able to brutalise a small neighbour and a sovereign neighbour in Ukraine, then that has implications for peace and security in the world. Now, Australia has a national interest in standing with Ukraine, and Australia does stand with Ukraine. It's not clear who Peter Dutton stands with or what he stands for.
Well, frankly, Kristy, I'm not sure that we could ever field that sort of force he's talking about, given we couldn't send a ship to the Red Sea against the Houthis. But this does seem very political to me. Is the Prime Minister trying to box out the coalition when it comes to national security credentials and basically looking tough?
Well, because this is campaign confidential, James, and because you and I have both walked the halls of Canberra, and we know that when the election cycle is on, things to do with foreign policy and defence and international diplomacy take on a very surprising domestic slant. And of course, the Prime Minister is trying to jump into this early and look tough. We know that he's continually polling in every single poll that comes up, Resolve, Redbridge News poll, that he is seen as weak, not strong, and certainly weak on national security. So he's seeing this as a domestic opportunity to reassert or to establish even some credentials in national security. Of course, he's never had portfolio responsibility for national security or defence or foreign affairs. So this is an area where he has no established identity to the voting public in, and he knows that he's continually polling behind Peter Dutton on it, who is a police officer who was in charge of national security, as well as immigration, which has national security overtones in it. Dutton is way in front of Albanese on this, and yes, it's very domestically focused. It's too early for Australia, really, to make these decisions, and he didn't have to come out and say it today.
That's right. We don't even have a peace deal yet, but it would seem to me then, as a strategy, Kristy, this would be really risky for the Prime Minister because, to me, it would highlight the fact that under his watch, under Labour's watch, defence has really seemed to have been run down. You know, we weren't able to send a ship to the Red Sea. We allowed those Chinese vessels to be conducting their live fire exercise in the Tasman and circumnavigate the continent. It seems like this would be a great opportunity for the coalition then to turn around and say, well, what are you going to do about it? Because on your watch, you let our capability run down.
Well, that's exactly right. There has been committee inquiry after committee inquiry. There was one report handed down towards the end of last year, which is about the Defence Department's capability to deliver Australia's ongoing defence plan. That was sort of swept under the rug a little bit, but avid defence watchers like the Strategic Policy Institute have spoken about this at length, that Australia doesn't have significant defence capability. And we've even seen Kim Beazley, the great Labor man, saying that Australia needs to up its defence spending at least 50% to make it 3% of GDP. It's currently sitting at 2%. But this is a way for Albanese, in one way, to keep Donald Trump happy, because Australia's on a knife edge with Donald Trump by not committing by not sort of looking like he's being provocative to Donald Trump. But on the other end of it, yes, certainly, really wanting to play to national security and have nice pictures of him standing with defence capability in the background, James, I think is what we might see.
Yeah, politicians love posing with that sort of stuff, though I remember in 1984, Michael Dukakis in the United States got in trouble for riding around in a tank. But that's another story. Hey, I want to just ask you one more thing, just from a political strategy point of view here, too. There was a fascinating little item in the Sunday Telegraph today that Peter Dutton wants to talk a lot about youth crime in this coming election campaign, citing a whole bunch of figures about just how bad it is. To me, this seemed like a naked play to Victoria, which really does have a terrible youth crime crisis, where the Labour government there is on the back foot and where the Libs are really looking to pick up a lot of seats. What do you reckon about this strategy?
I think it's less of a strategy and more of what polling demonstrates that people are concerned about. Now, we've had a couple of elections where there's sort of large esoteric type issues, climate change, environment and so forth, were polling at the top. Those have fallen down to about number 8 and 9 on the polling list. Crime is always 1, 2 and 3 in marginal seat electorates, and I know that, having polled many of them over my time. But federal politicians don't usually talk to crime because it is a state issue. However, it was very successful in the Queensland election, focusing on youth crime. And we see Christopher Foley this week has announced 150 new police officers. He's doing what he said he was going to do. He's tackling the crime crisis, particularly in the regions. Meanwhile, in Victoria, we see a last-ditch effort by the Victorian government to look like they are tough on law and order. But, of course, that comes off the back of ignoring the recommendations of the just outgoing police commissioner, who really wanted to do something about it but wasn't allowed to. So, yes, it's a ploy to Victoria. It's a state issue, but don't forget, it is what people want action on. It always has been, it always will be, but the pollsters don't like to tell you that when other things are a bit more popular in the media cycle. And
I think you're right, and I think Labor has a real weakness on that, so I think Peter Dutton is very smart to pick that up. Kristy McSweeney from the PR Council, thank you so much for joining me here on Campaign Confidential.